This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Detroit is the greatest!
Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Oh man, we're back. We took a holiday, and now we're back doing the Motor City Sports Rant. I am Jason Jarvi. Follow me on Twitter at Jarvi the King. Sitting across from me in his gray polo, looks like he's freshly shaven, John Macarone.
Jason, I missed you, man. The holiday came. I had a good time. Everything's going great with the network. I get to see
me at all.
I get to see the best intern this network has ever had. What's going on, my friend?
Yeah, I'm just a worthless minimum wage intern, right?
Well, for those that don't know, maybe that was a little bit of an inside joke. But
Inside joke.
I did definitely recognize that Jason, the King Jarvi, has arrived in the world of Detroit sports media.
I've been recognized by people. But let's move on from that. How was your holiday? You had a good Independence Day?
It was a very good weekend. The weather was absolutely beautiful. I got to spend time with the family. The kids celebrate their birthdays around this time. So it was a really good chance to kind of refresh, take a little bit of time off of work, rededicate myself to thinking about how to move this podcast network along. And then, unfortunately, over that time, we lost a great sports station. Whatever you think about Detroit Sports 105.1, I was really sad that it went away, and I was really sad for guys like you, all the talent there, and the way that it went down. It really was sad because, people lost their jobs, people who really depend on, that kind of work. We were abruptly uprooted. It happened so quickly. The good thing is you're still employed. The good thing is you are part of 105.1 The Bounce, and you're still doing your thing, so which is always a good thing. But, for those that don't know, you, Jason, worked at 105.1. You started there relatively early. You came from Specs Howard.
I did, yep.
Yep, you got on with Matt Derry.
Tom Mazaway brought me in, worked on the Matt Derry show, and I put in a lot of work there.
You did.
And I got what I put in.
Exactly. You did a really good job there, and I'll give you all credit because you were part of the team. They respected your work, and I know that very much so. And talking to everybody that spoke about you spoke so highly of you. And then, give credit to Dennis Farrell, who you and him did a great season of the Fantasy Sideline Show. I listened to every episode, every podcast that you guys did. You guys, if you were given the chance, really could have did something with that program. And it was something that I tuned into. I called regularly the Fantasy Sideline Show, and you guys gave me some good advice. I got relatively far in my leagues.
Didn't we get to at least one championship?
Exactly. So I give credit to that show. So you guys did a lot of good work. But for those that don't know, you were the last voice that was heard on Detroit Sports 105.1. And I know that everyone's talking about the way it was handled, but we don't have to get into all that. People have dissected that for pretty much for the last 3 weeks. But I just want to know what it was like for you sitting in, starting that Rewind program, and then all of a sudden, basically, the station was a sports station, and then it evolved into a hip-hop station into an oldies
station, right?
Within 5 minutes, you have two different stations. How did that go down?
It was really, really strange. I got called in to work the Rewind show. Normally, if we ever had staff meetings, I would work the Rewind show so all the full-time people could be there. And, the meeting was called. Got in there probably about 5. So about an hour before everything's going down. It was kind of the worst kept secret at the time that all the rumors were out there that the station was going to be flipping from kind of what everybody was there just kind of mulling around before the meeting. And I think there was kind of a feeling that it was just going down, but no one said anything really up until I went on, and then I started the Rewind show. And then, a couple minutes later, I tried to go, because at 6 o'clock, we had no commercials past that. So I went to, try and find somebody to, hey, I'm going to need commercials if I'm going to be running this. And when I come back, they're flipping over the station. And They had that strange, I don't know, opening for the transition station, and then it went on to oldies. So it was a weird vibe. They filled me in as that was happening, what was going on.
So you're sitting in the chair, you're talking, and you guys actually did air the first little bit of part with Ryan and Rico, right?
Yeah,
because my wife heard that.
At this point, that's what I was. I was the only one in there. And then after I went to go try and find somebody, that's when all the engineers came in, and then they flipped everything around.
Okay, so you're sitting in the chair, you're doing the rewind show, they're running the segment with Ryan and Rico. You come back, and all of a sudden there's engineers in there, and they're coming in and starting to do some work and pushing buttons, and then that's what aired.
Yep.
There was no delay, nothing. It's just that you were on, you
started it, and then it was switched. And it's just the way it goes. And I think when I started going to Specs Howard, and I knew going into the radio business that this is what it's going to be like. That it would be ideal to find a station and be able to stay with it if you could stay your entire career. But that's just not the way it happens normally. I mean, you see some of the radio's greats have been kicked off their station. Howard Stern he's on Sirius now because he couldn't figure out being on radio. Oh, I think it's better. It's a better format for him.
Yeah, even Drew Lane said that you haven't worked in radio until you've been, shit canned once.
Right. So I learned from an early time at that station, even when I was an intern, that at the drop of a hat, you could lose your job at any time. And that was probably the biggest thing on that day is after they flipped over the station, they said, we don't really need you right now. They were going to keep around a handful of part-timers and board ops to see what opportunities were going to be for what the new station was going to be, which is now 105.1 The Bounce. And they said, you can go home, but I stuck around because I wanted to see the guys and talk with them and just, if anything, just to commiserate with them, because a business standpoint, if you're looking at it just for that, this is probably the best move for the station. Because it's getting the station's getting a ton of buzz, and this is apparently throwback hip hop is what people are looking for. But when you put so much into a station, it's like it's something you've built, and that's something that I've said all along is that going into this business, being able to create something, put it out there, that's probably the most fulfilling for me, and to just see that go away in a push of a button.
So now you turn into 105.1, you hear maybe something like this.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. When you asked me to get those bumpers for the First Lady podcast, I immediately I thought of the songs that I've been playing on the new station.
Actually, it's not bad. A lot of people...
And you know what song that is?
I do, because you told me, but it's on
It was a good day.
It was a good day.
And it was not a good day that day.
That day was not a good day. But now it's
105.1 The Bounce, Detroit's throwback hip-hop and R&B.
And you're still there?
I am still there. Currently, they're right now looking for PD. They're looking for on-air talent. And right now, I'm currently in the rotation, just running the board.
Okay.
And that's... Right now, I'm thankful that I do have a job.
Exactly.
And I do feel for all my friends who worked at Detroit Sports 105.1.
Now, before we get to your beef with me, I cannot believe you coming here telling me that you're angry with the doc.
Very angry.
The guy keeping you on the air. The guy is going to include you. I'm going to make you relevant again. No doubt about it.
Thanks a lot.
I will make sure that happens. No doubt about it. Good thing is, Jason, you've done podcasting now for a better part of a year and a half, and you're getting really your groove, and you're doing a fantasy show on this network. You're doing the Motor City Sports Rant. You're dedicated, and no matter what, I'll include you, and no matter what we do here with this project, we'll include you and definitely get the people on your side. No doubt about it. You're more than just some glorified intern and some worker at a station.
You.
No doubt about it.
That.
And the reason why I could say that is because at the drop of a hat, if I say, hey, Jason, I need something, boom, it's done. No complaints, within reason. I am very demanding as the guy here, but you come through, and that's what I like, is that you come through with whatever I need, and that's why I'll take care of you, no doubt about it. But before you get to your beef, which I will even let you, show some dissent towards me, but does it, knowing that it could happen this way in radio, that it's a tough business, make you pause for concern about the career choice that you made? And that's why, thinking about working in radio is unbelievable. I have friends, Adam is thinking about working in radio. You work in radio. I've had friends in the past who have experienced this and worse with backstabbing and all that kind of politics and stuff. Does it give you any kind of pause for concern about working in radio, knowing that it is super tough and this kind of stuff could happen?
No, it doesn't give me pause at all. I knew going in that this was the type of business that it is. I truly believe, and I believed it when I was in school at Specs Howard, is that if you work the hardest you can and you put out good work, you're going to get whatever you put in. And I fully believe that, if you put in good work at a radio station, people are going to recognize that. And that's how I feel right now. I put in good work at Detroit Sports 105.1, and I've made connections, and I know people have my back.
Yeah, Jason, I have to inform you, after the podcast, we're going to have a meeting, okay? You know why?
Is it to quell rumors? Oh, man. Something is wonderful is coming.
I'm sorry.
Right?
No. I'm only kidding. We're not going to be playing no hip-hop music on this podcast.
We're going to be Detroit Sports Podcast, The Bounce.
See, the good thing is maintain a good attitude, and things will happen for you. I have no doubts about it. All right. So you've been listening to the network like everyone else is now.
If you're a former listener, tuned into the brand new show that aired last Saturday with Jenna Jones, the First Lady podcast. It was a pretty solid listen. She knows what she's talking about. She's a diehard Detroit sports fan, but she brought you on to talk about Calvin Johnson. And I wasn't a fan of you. I didn't agree with either of you, but it was your point particular that I had a beat. You called Calvin Johnson soft. How can you call Calvin Johnson soft?
Why?
You called him soft because he retired, because he didn't want to play through injuries? No, I get it. It came out, he said, and he talked about how he's been playing through injuries pretty much for the past couple of years. And then he even made the comment of, if we were closer to being a winning team, it would have been harder to walk away from the game. But I don't see any reason that you could call Calvin Johnson soft or criticize him for wanting to walk away from the game and maintain some of his bodily function when he gets older in age. You're calling him, you don't think he's a warrior? You don't let him go out there, and then you come out and you say, as a fan, I think he's soft, but as a guy, I respect him for what I say, which I don't agree with. You have to have, it's one or the other. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth.
Okay.
And I'm not done yet, because this is what I'm saying. Here's what I would equate that to. If you go out and murder somebody and you're like, oh, that wasn't me. I have a split personality. That was the other guy. It's the same thing.
Okay. Now you're going to give me a chance to defend myself?
Sure, if you want.
Okay.
And are you going to recant?
No.
Do you apologize to Calvin Johnson?
Do I apologize to Calvin? No. Here's my thinking on it. Listen, we all know football is a brutal sport. We all know that in order to play football, you're going to have injuries. You're going to be beat up. And we all know that football is a sport that you don't enter into lightly. It's not for the weak-hearted. And he did a lot of things to get on the field. He was a guy that did whatever it took to get on the field. I guess maybe I needed to be more specific and explain myself a little better. The fact that he kind of had to come out and say that, hey, I was hurt this many times, I had to get my knee drained this many times, and the fact that he came out after his career, when throughout the whole span of his career, he didn't say nothing. He didn't come out and talk to the media. He didn't give people too much information. Now, after he's retired, a lot of people already know that he's injured and battered, and that's why you're retiring at 30. But to come out and sit with Michael Smith and just come out and be like, if the Lions were winning, then maybe it would have made the decision harder, that I've had this and this happen and it's really hard. I get all that. I'm of the opinion that if you're going to play football, you got to be a warrior. You don't have to come out and talk about it. You quit at 30. It speaks for itself. Why sit down with him at all? Why sit down? Is he trying to kind of, stick it to the Lions organization? Is he trying to maybe talk himself into, yeah, I'm retired, but we all know that, you were often injured. We all know that it's a brutal sport. You're going to get tackled quite a bit. Why are you coming out there? That's all was my thinking. Do I think that he was a soft NFL player? No, I think that he did what he could to get out there as best he could.
The dude was always double or triple covered.
Exactly. He got contacted quite a bit. But my thinking was, why come out there and say, I think the best way to put it is him coming out after retirement and now doing a sit-down special with ESPN was soft.
It looks like you're kind of backpedaling.
No, I'm not
backpedaling, John. I got you on the ropes.
Oh.
And this may be kind of contradictory to what I was saying or what I'm trying to argue with you right now. But you also said that Calvin Johnson was one of the 5 best wide receivers of all time. Do you stand by that?
Was Calvin one of the best receivers of all time? I said that. I don't recall saying that. But yeah, I do believe he ranks up there. I mean, he's got a lot of touchdowns. I do believe that he had great speed in his prime. He was basically a dude that you couldn't cover.
I think this is kind of another topic. I do want to discuss this with you.
But then the question is, he's a great receiver, stats-wise, had a lot of intangibles. But the part that I think is the biggest indictment was, in crunch time, was he a prime-time player? Maybe not. Because there were situations where he cost the team, and in the end, his final resume shows no playoff wins.
I think you could also argue that Barry Sanders wasn't a clutch player. He didn't win us any titles or anything. Nobody's really won us any titles. But this is what I want to discuss. When you talk about greatest lines of all time, and even if you think back in recent history, top of your list has to be Barry Sanders. Well, is Calvin Johnson in your top 5 of all-time Lions players?
I would have to say so, yeah.
And I would agree with that. But I'm not sure if Calvin Johnson is one of the top 5 all-time wide receivers, which I hate to say that, and I hate to admit it. I love the guy, and I loved every moment that he played for us. But I don't think he's one of the, elite wide receivers of all time.
What makes you think that?
He was a dominant player, but he never really took the team anywhere. He was one player, and in his dominant seasons, it was when we were at our lowest points. When he broke the record, didn't we? What did we finish? Did we finish 6-10 that year?
And another point too, I just got done watching the entire series on Amazon, All or Nothing, and in that series they featured Larry Fitzgerald. They featured what he did back in Arizona's playoff run when they got to the Super Bowl, and what amazing things he did in that game, so close, within one possession of winning the Super Bowl. And then he comes back last season and has that epic game in the playoff game versus Green Bay with the unbelievable run. Do you have that signature moment in prime time with Calvin Johnson? All you got to say is, and I think that's the reason why you're saying that you don't believe he's an all-time great, is look at his numbers in the postseason, the 2 games that he played, both losses and both games, which you could argue that he was basically targeted and he was basically the defense of both New Orleans and Dallas took him out of the games. But was he a guy in prime time that would deliver? And in the end, no. So that's why he goes away with a whimper and no postseason success. He's got a lot of stats and he's got a lot of intangibles. He was a great deep threat, and I would agree with you. Maybe he's not a top 5. Would you say top 10?
I'm going to run through a list of players right now, and I want you to see if you'd rank them higher than Calvin Johnson. Obviously, we'll start with Jerry Rice.
Number 1 receiver all time.
Terrell Owens.
Oh.
I think he's right there. I think you could make an argument either way for him.
Okay.
Randy Moss.
Yeah, Randy Moss is a little better.
I think Randy Moss is a top 5 wide receiver because he's a freak of an athlete. And if you want to knock him, you can knock him because he didn't always have that motor attitude. He took plays off. Isaac Bruce.
Ooh, you don't think Calvin's better than Isaac Bruce?
Isaac Bruce won a title, and he won he essentially won that Super Bowl for them.
But wouldn't you argue that if you take Calvin Johnson out of the Lions and you put him somewhere else, maybe on a St. Louis, maybe on a Minnesota, Dallas, that he has at least a playoff win?
It's possible, but does one playoff win make him an all-time great?
No. What I'm saying is I think if he was on any other organization but the Lions, I would say that he would have a lot of playoff wins and maybe more appearances. You got to remember, the Lions organization as a whole, not just Calvin, but the entire organization prior to Bob Quinn, you would say at best was defunct. You would say Calvin has a lot of responsibility for the lack of success in the time that he played in the decade, but the organization has a lot to say too, because the draft strategy was terrible a lot of years. A lot of situations came out where, the Lions just underachieved with some talent. And you got to the postseason a couple times, and in the end, you didn't really do much. And you could say that really, did you really have good head coaching from Jim Schwartz to Caldwell, who doesn't have enough balls to go for it on 4th and 2 in the Dallas game? You could look at it like that, too. There's a lot of factors that go into it, but Calvin had a role in it. I do believe he's somewhere else he has success.
I think Calvin had a great career. I think he will eventually, he'll make the Hall of Fame just because he is. I think if you're going on pure talent, he had the talent to be one of the, I'd argue that he'd be the top 3 overall wide receivers of all time. And the only reason that he's not higher is because he's on the Lions.
So you would say maybe not even close to the top 10, maybe just a little bit outside of it?
I think he's top 10.
Okay.
I think there's
lower half.
I think after you go Jerry Rice, I think there's a lot of the same guys. You have Marvin Harrison, Hines Ward. I think it's all subjective. Hines Ward won more Super Bowls, but is he a more talented wide receiver than Calvin Johnson? I don't think so. I think Calvin Johnson is a much better receiver than Hines Ward, but stats don't show that.
Do you think that the way that he left was becoming of his talent and what he did to the Lions in terms of going out there and saying, well, it would have been harder if the Lions, were a better team. The Lions need to get out of their own way, and then kind of talking about some things, that might hurt the organization in terms of how they treated players with concussions, the fact that he never showed up on an injury report for a concussion, and he comes out right away and says, oh yeah, I had plenty of them, that he could have got pills like candy, that it was easily accessible.
I think Calvin Johnson would have said that for any team. And I really think any player could come out and say exactly the same thing that Calvin Johnson just said about the Lions. There's problems throughout the entire NFL of not diagnosing concussions properly, of doling out painkillers like candy, we finally see some players actually advocating the use of medical marijuana, where that would actually be, it's a better option than getting addicted to opioids. So I don't have a problem with it. And I don't have a problem with him walking away. Even though I am a diehard Lions fan, and, during games, I will criticize him. I will never criticize a guy wanting to walk away and do whatever they want to do with their own life, because that's their decision. And I'm not going to criticize him for taking the money. It's not his fault that the Lions paid him the money. If you want to be mad at anybody for paying him that money, be mad at the NFL. Be mad at the owners that they make so much money, and that, there's no way that they wouldn't be able to pay these guys ridiculous amounts of money. When you make close to $1 billion a year, you're not going to pay people like you did when they were in the 70s. You're not going to have guys, starters, go for $500,000 a year. These guys are going to get paid, and it's their right.
It's really just devastating for the organization in that you had your best wide receiver, your best running back of all time in your organization just walk away a little bit early. I do think that, Calvin, if the organization was just a little bit better, maybe, what do you think would have brought him back? If they just got to the postseason this year, do you think? I
think they would have had to make the postseason this year. I think they would have had to make the postseason, and they would have had to make that playoff game at least close. If not win, make sure that you're in that game.
You know what the final blow probably was that Hail Mary from Green Bay. You look at that, he falls to his knees. It's just, you look at it and you go, you know what? Is it really worth it? The pain of the losses. It wasn't like they just would lose games close. The Lions would lose games in ways that were just unbelievable. That Seattle game, they didn't know the rules. It was so weird.
I think 2 plays would have completely changed the Lions season. If that fumble in the end zone doesn't happen, or if it gets called properly, we win that game. If the Hail Mary doesn't happen, we win that game. And at that point, aren't we in the playoffs? So, but that's all ifs and buts, and we can't go back. I can't make those kinds of arguments for the same reason that Michigan fans can't make the arguments that, oh, we were beating you guys last year for the entire game, and we basically beat you, but you still beat us. It happened.
My goodness. We're going to take a quick timeout, and you're going to hear me have a quick pep in my step, because as we're recording this, the debut of Vince McMahon coming back at Raw from Detroit is going down.
John is so rock hard right now.
Hashtag Raw Detroit. So we're going to take a quick break, see what's going on in this opening segment live from Joe Louis Arena. We'll come back, and in the second half, we're going to get into...
Hashtag rock hard doc.
We're going to talk about, unfortunately, being two Sparty guys, the bad news that we heard from one of our star NBA athletes. We'll talk about the Tigers, and we'll talk about a little bit about athletes and their role in society. Should they speak out? Should athletes be social activists? All that on the Motor City Sports Rant on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
What's up, everybody? We're back to the Detroit Sports Podcast, The Boats. No, we're not. That's on this radio. It's the Motor City Sports Rant again, and we're gonna talk about a Sparty player who is in the news recently.
Unfortunately,
Draymond Green.
Draymond Green's not having a good couple months. Well, the news came out, and it wasn't good for Draymond Green. That it was earlier on Monday, and you started seeing it on Deadspin, you started seeing it on MLive, that Draymond Green on Sunday evening got into a slap fest, potentially with a Michigan State football player, and he got arrested. And right away on Monday, he was snapping. Then he was already in New York. That the organization, the Golden State Warriors, are already aware of it. There's rumors going on, back and forth, whether he was provoked or not, but not a good look. And you know why, Jason? You are a multimillionaire. Yes, you can go back to your old stomping grounds. Yes, you can hang out at Michigan State. But you got to realize, and this will probably bleed into our talk a little bit later about social activism, you got to be, when you become a professional athlete, you have to become a better citizen. You have to be a better role model. 2:30 in the morning out and about in East Lansing is the last place Draymond Green needs to be. Hanging with the fellas, I get it. I go out. I was out till about 12:30, 1 o'clock on Saturday, out there in the mean streets of Shelby Township watching UFC. But you don't hear me getting in trouble. You don't hear me getting into Slapfest. I go, have a couple cocktails, cheer the women's fight in the main event of UFC 200, put my head down, get in my car, and go home. Okay, 2:30 in the morning, nothing. I live by the age-old adage, nothing good happens after midnight. And if I got $80 million contract, and I know that people are going to test me, and that anywhere I go, there's going to be cameras, listen, I build a bar in my crib, and I hang out.
Before you finish, I do want to ask you one question. When you go out to the bar, even if it's at 11:30 p.m., does anybody come up to you, hey, Doc, your show sucks? Does anybody come out and say that?
Well, I haven't been too out there, but now that I got the swag, somebody did come up to me and said, hey, are you the guy from the Twitter? Because I have now a Detroit Sports Podcast hat, nice black hat with big blue letters, the Detroit Sports Podcast. Somebody there was actually following my tweets and came up to me and said something, and I have not had anybody openly criticize me. But are you asking how I would handle it? I will tell you.
I'm not asking how you would handle it, but have you ever had that happen to you? Or if you didn't, do you think you'll ever get to the point where you would have to, if you're not wearing the swag of the podcast network, that people will be like, oh, dude, that's the Doc.
Listen, if that happened, I literally would die laughing because I'm just a guy that does a podcast and I'm a psychologist. But if someone were to come up to me in a little bit of a hostile way, be like, listen, man, it's all good. I'm with my kids. I'm with my wife. Is that
Why do you have your kids out at 1 in the morning?
No. If I'm out at 1 in the morning.
You're a horrible parent.
Yeah, no, if I'm out at 1 o'clock at the bar and I'll just be sitting there with a couple guys and I don't think I give off the vibe of somebody that you want to attack. Because I'm a nice guy, I'm smiling, I'm jovial. Listen, if someone critiqued me and said I suck, I'd be like, listen, my best friend on earth criticizes me worse. You know what my boy Kenny tells me? He tells me I'm boring. He tells me every show I put out here sucks. He tells me that, I'm monotone and I'm the worst podcaster ever. That I've heard it all. And how we're still boys. You know why?
So he's a nice guy. He's a nice friend.
Oh, dude, he's harsh. But you know what it is that's what he thinks. That's fine. You know what I do? I believe everybody's entitled to their opinion. I don't take it personally because I don't do this for ego. I do it to enjoy my time talking sports, spending time with people I care about. I don't do it to I have an ego on the microphone to try to pump myself up to try and do what you guys do. But I just do this because I love sports. And if you think I suck, that's your opinion. That's fine too. And here's the thing. On our Twitter page, we got over 30,000 followers. Majority of our followers are real. We get I can tell you about 300 tweets a day. Half of them are great. Half of them are okay, mediocre, and there's half that are pretty nasty. Like, you tweet too much. Why do you have commercials on your podcast? You do this, you do that. And I like everything. I respect any opinion. I've maybe blocked 5 people in the entire length of the podcast because I respect criticism. If you're listening, if you take 5 seconds to push send, I respect it. So I think I can handle it very well. Now, Draymond Green, for this to come out is devastating. It's bad news. It's a bad look. And you have to elevate yourself as a person. I can't imagine what good could come of hanging out 2:30 in the morning in East Lansing, your own stopping grounds, and this happens. You're going to get fined. And here's the thing, public knowledge. Any Joe Schmo, you and I can go dial up the East Lansing police, get the record, and it says, hey, Draymond Green slapping people. And at the very least, when you got $80 million in the bank and people know you have money, they're going to target you. Why are you going out and doing that kind of stuff? Why? It's just a bad look. And for Draymond Green, I'm being a fellow Sparty. We don't know the whole story, but it's a bad look, and it's on video. There's some site out there on Twitter that is promoting it and saying that, hey, I know the whole story and that he was provoked. But even then, why are you putting yourself in that situation? Prevention is the number one way to avoid this kind of mess. It's prevention. Don't be out at 2:30 in the morning. Get home. Get in the car and go home. What are you out there doing?
For right now, though, he made bond. It was like $200 bond that he got out on. There was no serious injury. I really don't think anything is going to come from this. But what I do think is we may have to watch Draymond Green. I think this is a kind of pattern that we've seen from him right now.
That he can't control his temper.
Right. You've seen it on the basketball court that he's always, and really, even though the video came out of him flailing his leg the entire season, we highlighted on his leg for the rest of the playoffs, and he constantly was kicking. He got into the issue with LeBron with the whole slap back, and that's essentially what happened. But it happened off of the basketball court. I saw a funny meme about it saying that you're only supposed to do this on the basketball court, Draymond. You're only supposed to slap somebody on the basketball court.
And the other thing is it could affect Michigan State's football season. If it's an athlete there and someone that could be also getting in trouble if he provoked it, you don't mess with Day-Day. You don't go to the king of East Lansing.
You don't mess with the dancing bear.
Yeah, you don't mess with Draymond Green. So, it's one of those things where you just say, Draymond, come on, man. You just signed Kevin Durant. Life should be great. You should be hip-hopping. You should be excited, dancing. You just got one of the best players in the NBA. You should be on top of the world. Why are you out there getting all angry and stuff?
What do you think he said to provoke him?
Oh, they're probably
say, "Oh, you're number 4 now behind Kevin Durant."
Usually, these things happen when guys, puff out their chests and their egos, or maybe making fun of each other, and some person takes it the wrong way, or something was said that was really inappropriate. But I don't know. I'm fascinated to hear more about it, but it's not a good look. It's not a good look.
I'm very surprised that it happened in East Lansing.
I am too. Yeah.
In Ann Arbor, I would get it. Even if it was someplace down in Detroit, if you're in Cleveland, obviously the tension would be high there. But you're in East Lansing. This is where you made a name for yourself. And
to segue into our talk about social activism, Charles Barkley famously came out, and that's the one that everyone goes to when we talk about athletes and when we talk about their role as role models. He came out and said, I'm not a role model. Why are you viewing me that way? But in essence, here's the thing. It's one of those things where athletes earn it by default. They're highly paid. People look to them. I think more people know who LeBron James is more than they probably know who Michelle Obama is. More people know athletes because they look up to them. Sports plays such a big role in society. So if you like it or not, I don't think you can just bury your head in the sand and say, I'm not somebody that should have a voice or have an opinion, or that I should just be able to do whatever I want. So the reason why I wanted to talk to you about social activism is Carmelo Anthony basically came out in the New York papers and said that, listen, the system is broken, that we can no longer as athletes sit down and let what's going on with the police stand, that the system is broken, that if we continue to just rally.
Obviously, you're talking about the tragedies that also happened over the weekend.
Exactly. The situations with
which
the police.
All prayers go out to all the victims,
the victims of the shootings from the police, the victims of Dallas, everybody all around. It was just a terrible, terrible situation. And so Carmelo Anthony came out and was like, listen, we got to do more than just protest. The system is broken, and until athletes stand up and use our power, use our influence to actually make change, then nothing's going to happen. We're still going to continue to see police brutality. We're going to see situations where people may or may not be unjustly shot by police. So I'm thinking, you know what? It's a good thing for him because athletes do have that voice, and those that do choose to use it can have a lot of influence. But I also understand the reasons why they don't. Corporate America doesn't want to kind of meddle in this kind of stuff.
Right.
They want to keep it simple.
Is that going to affect your deal with Nike?
Exactly. But I think Carmelo Anthony, once he gets established, then he can do something like this. I think a younger guy, I think that's why they don't do it, is it could affect their livelihood. It could affect them getting endorsements. And remember, it wasn't like in the past where you could have an opinion and then it kind of just wash away. In this age of social media, everything you tweet can be screenshotted and used against you. I was shocked that people saved Kevin Durant's tweet from 6 years ago. I didn't know he wrote that, joining, that he tweeted about, oh, I would never join. Why is LeBron joining the Heat? They screenshotted it and used it at an opportune time. So whatever people say is now being recorded, is now being used against them in situations. You can't just have a healthy debate nowadays because people are so passionate one way or the other that people just don't have debates and they have harsh feelings and they maybe even go to retaliation. Maybe looking up some things about Carmelo that aren't so savory and being like, why are athletes using their voice? Why are they even talking at all? So you have that side of it too. But I do believe that at the highest level, if you're somebody that is willing to stand the heat, is somebody that has a cause that's just and you believe it, then you educate yourself and you go out there and you promote it. But I do also think that athletes have to be careful because if you do face pushback, it could be, not so nice. It's not as pleasant as it was in the past. You get attacked, you get thousands and thousands of tweets. You get some people that actually send letters to the organization saying, I'm not going to buy season tickets because why is this guy saying this and that? So, and then you got to remember, you got to also be careful of what you're trying to spew out there to the public because, guys like Torrey Hunter, guys that are ultra religious have come out there and been like, hey, I'm not down with this whole gay marriage cause. And if you got athletes spouting messages like that, that's way too controversial to be trying to spew as a sports company. If I'm the Tigers, I don't want my athletes talking like that.
And it's such a rocky road, and it's almost impossible to navigate it correctly. If you have any opinion, you're more than likely going to be criticized by somebody, even if you're the most politically correct. Somebody's going to criticize you. If you say the right thing, somebody's going to criticize you for not taking the other side. I don't know. At times, it would make sense for athletes not to get involved in social activism, but I think you're right. I think they do have a standing. They have a platform. Millions of people follow them. Look at like you said, LeBron James. LeBron James's voice will probably be heard by anyone who wants to listen right now. My advice to them would just, you got to be smart when you come out, and obviously, getting into it a little bit, the whole Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. We're doing injustices. There's injustices going on for everybody. And obviously, I don't understand completely what's going on. I'm a white guy, and I will never understand, but I completely feel for them. And until everybody changes, and that's really what it's going to take. Everybody needs to change. Everybody needs to change their mindset.
For change to happen, I think some athletes do got to take that stand and push things along because they do have that voice. Would you be somebody that would be out there and look at some social issues a la Muhammad Ali, a la some of these key guys that actually do have a voice and use it? Would you be out there, protesting things that you felt were unjust, or would you just be a little bit more low key if you had, multi-millions and you're viewed as one of the top 5 guys in your sport? Do you go out there, or do you say, you know what? I can only focus on me. I got to focus on me and my family, and social aspects aren't a place for athletes.
Me as Jason Jarvi, just the normal guy, I'm pretty reserved. But if I was an athlete and I was under the microscope 24/7, and in this day and age and with social media, I think I would almost have an obligation to at least have a voice on it.
Basically, we there's the topic that could hit home to all of us: the Flint situation with the water. You're an athlete. You're on the Pistons. At the very least, I would have been out there with 50,000 cases of water and out there helping the citizens of Flint, for sure. I wouldn't be probably talking about it. I would probably be doing more action. I think that's probably where when I look at it, because the art of debate is so skilled. You really got to be able to tell your opinion and use your words wisely, because you make one slip up nowadays and it could be the end of you. You could be in a situation where public perception totally changes. So I would just be more about action and potentially donating to a lot of charities, spending my time a little bit more than the verbal side of things and calling people to action. In that situation with the Dallas situation, I would have definitely maybe sent a message out, maybe donated to the police, donated to the family's cause, and stuff like that. More action, less words would probably be how I would handle my role with a lot of funds and a lot of clout.
And I agree. I think you hit the nail right in the head. The actions speak louder than words. And until change is made, we're bound to repeat history, which is really sad.
But do you think more and more athletes are going to take that stand, or do you feel like in this day and age, you just have to be really at the top of your game to be able to kind of maybe make some influence?
I'd like to say that athletes will make more of a stand.
But you don't think so?
I don't see the person out there, though. If you want to point to one guy, Tim Tebow is a really great person. Obviously, he has the whole religious side of everything, but I think he's a good guy, and he is outspoken. I just don't see the athletes right now who are going to come out and really make a difference. I see them saying stuff, but I don't see the actions, and I'm not sure what actions they take aside from just donating.
Okay, before we start talking about ESPN and the Detroit Tigers, just want to take a quick second to tell you about a great sponsor, fanaticu.com. Great sponsor, been with us since the beginning of the project, and they're a sponsor that really has helped us take off. And this week, Jason, on Sunday, 6 p.m., Michael Fulmer will be doing a signing at the Fraser location, located there on Groesbeck Road there in Fraser, the Fanatic U location. Michael Fulmer, 6 p.m. on Sunday the 17th, will be out there doing an autograph signing. Adam and I likely will be out there, and we're going to give away 2 VIP spots. So just look for our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, and you can see how you can meet Michael Fulmer. Don't wait in line. Get a free item that he'll take and sign with you, give you an autograph, take a picture. Fanatic U and Detroit Sports Podcast, we try to take care of our listeners. So look for the contest announcement later this week on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. And we always want to give thanks to our sponsors, all the fine sponsors that support this project. And we want to thank Fanatic U for allowing us to do this great work and to give back to our listeners. So check out Fanatic U, Detroit Sports official outfitter, fanaticu.com. Now, Jason, before we were recording this, we talked a little bit about ESPN, and we had talked about it because I was reading about streaming services. One of our friends of the podcast, Max White, he had tweeted out that I guess in some state they made it illegal or voted that if you share your Netflix password, that it's a federal crime. I started laughing. Yeah, I started laughing hysterically. But then it gets me into streaming services like Amazon, Hulu, WWE Network. A lot of Americans, Jason, are really looking at their cable bills and going, is it really justifiable for me to pay $100 a month for cable or for Dish or for satellite services when you can get Amazon, Netflix, Hulu at a quarter of the price? And so, as it relates to sports, ESPN is just taking massive hits in terms of people cutting the cord. And with their big expenses in terms of the rights fees they're paying to all these sports, each and every time they look at the numbers, they're going down. People are cutting the cord. And so, like any company, ESPN...
In reference to that, they're disconnecting their cable or satellite, whatever they
Exactly.
have.
They're going off the grid. They're not using cable. They're either, trying to find ways to, hook it up or finding ways to stream Netflix and other stuff to get their entertainment. So ESPN naturally, looking at the WWE Network model, looking at streaming
HBO Go.
HBO Now, HBO Go, those services are making money. They're going to niche services. And so I had asked you, and we talked about it a little bit, if ESPN, right now as it stands, they're not going to give away the network for free on a streaming service, but they're going to give away niche sports, some programming, and as a way to kind of bring some people along and bring some revenue back. If ESPN does that, maybe at like $9.99, maybe at the most $14.99, would you add on ESPN as a streaming service?
Well, for me, I have everything that I need with my cable, and I have all the ESPNs. I get my Monday Night Football, which football obviously is king, and that's the most important thing. So the way that this is going to succeed is if you get something that I can only get on ESPN streaming. You know, there's for HBO, if you want to watch Game of Thrones, that's one way that they make money, because everybody wants to watch Game of Thrones. So you get the streaming service for a cheap cost. I know Netflix and Hulu, they have even Amazon, they all have certain critically acclaimed shows that people are looking for and they want to watch. And that's why people buy into that. And I think if this ESPN streaming word is going to succeed it somehow, they're going to have to find something that everybody wants. And it's going to start, I think, with football. You got to find something with football, whether it's NFL or college. Maybe they move their college onto that. But I think baseball is readily available at a lot of places. I mean, here in Detroit, we have FSD. All Tiger games are there, aside for a handful that are on Sunday night on ESPN. Hockey and basketball, all three of those are on.
I got the solution. I probably just give it away for free. Would you
give ESPN streaming away for free?
No. Would you exclusively buy ESPN as a streaming service just for 30 for 30?
No.
OJ part 1 through 5, special series maybe on locally. If you just target it towards Detroit, maybe talking more about Calvin Johnson and a 30 for 30, talking about maybe Sheed and leaving Robert Horry open, some documentary type stuff. I might do it just for 30 for 30.
Well, I think the issue you're going to run into there, though, is you can already get 30 for 30 on Netflix.
See, there you go. They have deals there.
They would have to make that exclusive to the ESPN streaming, which I think there will be some people who want to, if they can't watch it on cable, obviously you get the streaming. But I think that's very niche. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you're not going to get a ton of Detroit stuff.
Yeah, 88% of our Twitter followers at Detroit Podcast, when I put out there, voted hell no. They would never do it. Not $9.99, not any price.
And I want to rescind my vote. I said hell yeah, but I was confused a little bit. I'm going to hell no.
You change your vote to hell no. And I think a model, though, if they want to do it, is WWE Network. It's great. It started off a little bit slow, but now they're well over 1 million subscribers. And they do great content. They do great stuff that you want to see. And what they do is every pay-per-view is available. So there's value there. And then if you're a guy that bought one pay-per-view for $60, you get 6 months of pay-per-views for the $9.99. So there's value in that. And that's why WWE Network is succeeding, in that there's stuff too, like archives. Maybe if they did archival stuff.
And that's where I think you probably win. I loved ESPN Classic. And I think that would be to put classic games on there so you could stream. That would be one way.
On-demand games, things like that. Yeah.
So if you want to go back and you want to watch, I don't know, this will be in the future, but if you want to watch the 2015 Michigan State game, that'll be there. And I think that, again, it's another niche thing. But I think that is even bigger.
Look at us giving away ideas.
30 for 30.
Look at us.
Yeah.
Look at us.
Let's just call up Bristol.
Let's call them up and tell them we want. See?
Maybe if you bring in like the shows, if you have Mike and Mike, the first takes, maybe stream those. But I think unless you got to have one of the major sports.
Mm-hmm. So now, being a guy that has had Dish Network for about 15 years, I am missing the NFL Network a little bit. The deal with Dish ran out, so they're blacking me out of NFL Network, and I'm like, oh, I would drop maybe $3 to $6 a month for it to get it back. Is there a channel that that was removed from your cable, if the prices became too outrageous? They don't do that too often with cable companies, but if there was a channel that went away, that you would just absolutely have to stream it if it came back in that way?
I mean, right now, I think the biggest one would be HBO. HBO and AMC, I think they have some really great programming. They have some great shows, and you're talking about Game of Thrones and Walking Dead. 2 shows. I mean, Walking Dead is going to be going on for the foreseeable future until it costs more money to make the episode than they're making. And Game of Thrones obviously will have a shelf life. They probably have another couple of years. But HBO is something where you stream the movies. You have all that. You have the access to all that. So you get a plus and you get the show that you want to see. A channel that I would pay money for, crazy as it might sound, I wouldn't pay a lot, but I'd pay for the Food Network.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
There's a lot of shows. I love Chopped. I love all the Grill Master specials. It's a great channel. See, exactly. I'm not going to pay a ton of money for it to stream it, but if it went away from my cable channel, I'd shell out a couple bucks for it.
Yeah, see? And so, you know why I'm not going to be streaming too many channels? Because I'm out and about playing Pokemon Go. You know, I did download it.
You're setting up the Pokestop at Vinny Stubbs' house, right?
Exactly. I'm trying to figure out how to do it, and I'm not getting the concept yet. I don't like the fact that it drains your battery. I haven't been out yet walking. I did download it on my app. I created my dude, and he's been all of 3 feet. He collected his first dude because it was 3 feet away. But I was trying to do a social experiment earlier today, but I just got to figure out a way to see if I can make a Pokestop at the studios here and just like see out the window. People are kind of walking around with their phones and stuff. It is fascinating that and I think I saw you when you were picking at your phone have a Pokemon dude in the background.
I do have it.
Pokemon Go, yes or no?
Did you ever play the Pokemon games?
No. I was a Mario guy. Nintendo Mario.
It may have been right beyond your time because I think when it first started coming out, I was in about like 5th, 6th grade. So that was right around the time I had a Game Boy and I played Pokemon as a kid. And I think you're a couple years older. You were probably like right on the edge of it where if you would have picked it up, you would have been a nerd.
Yeah, exactly. I was a Mario Sonic dude.
Which everybody's a Mario Sonic guy. I downloaded it I wanted to check it out. And I think...
Did you walk the mean streets of East Point?
No. I have driven around with it on, which I know you're not supposed to do.
What? Shame. You can't do that. How do you do that?
You just turn it on.
Oh, my goodness.
And I think that's one of the issues with it is that you have to have it on at all times for it to register anything. I think some people are taking it way too crazy. And I think that the app is going to have to go through some updates because I've heard some stories of like people... They come home and they have a bunch of teenagers in their backyard.
Yeah, businesses.
There was a story I saw on my social media that a lady came home and there was like a group of 5 teenagers in her backyard. And when she was like, would you please leave my backyard? They got upset with her. They're the ones who are trespassing. It's ridiculous. I think probably you're going to see something where like the range, because I think that's one of the issues they come into is that like you see something that you wanna look at, but you have to be like within like 10 feet of it. I think they're gonna make that range bigger because they're gonna have a ton of backlash. And there's a BuzzFeed story because one of the like the stops, like the locations, there's a ton of churches, and there's a guy who they bought a house and they live there, and there's just tons of people who are going by there. It's like a gym, so there's tons of people going by all the time.
I really thought that now being in my mid to late 30s that I wouldn't be surprised by things in society, but what else can they do with these phones? I mean, literally, you got people, grown adults, teenagers, youngsters walking around with their phones, swiping, doing stuff all over the place off one app. Literally, Jason, in 5 days, this thing has become a phenomenon. And do you think it's going to be sustainable, or it's got more users than Snapchat and Twitter in 5 days?
They're going to have to change some stuff. And I think there are some real big issues. Obviously, you have to walk around and look at it. Yeah, if you're not watching where you're going, it's a huge thing. So if they can somehow fix that, but I do see there are some benefits to it because if you're getting people out walking, we could solve the nation's obesity problem by having people go out if they have to walk 5K to hatch their Pokemon egg. Hey, they got their steps in that day.
You know what? I think I'm going to debut a new segment real fast on the fly here. The Motor City Sports Rant Tweet of the Week. We just got it, dude. It was hilarious. Totally unrelated to what we were talking about, but very funny. At Hapt Cole gets in and he goes, "Am I the only one surprised someone didn't ask Anibal Sanchez to pitch to them tonight for the home run derby?" Nice. That's a good blast. That's funny. That'll help us segue perfectly into our final topic. A little bit of a downer, but going to, again, make a pitch that is not over exactly for the Detroit Tigers. And let me tell you why. Yes, Brad Ausmus is a disaster. Yes, he's not evolving, but I do believe
like a Pokemon.
I do believe that
Can Brad Ausmus evolve into Joe Madden?
no, absolutely not. But what's going to happen is the Tigers are going to play a lot of games at home. I believe around 50 games are going to be played at home in the second half of the year. The schedule at first is a little bit daunting, but we are going to play a plethora of bad teams in the second half, and I do believe we can hang around. I'm not confident that the Tigers are going to get anywhere close to the playoffs, but it's not totally over yet in that you make one or two moves, you get guys back that are healthy and perform. If they can just get Pelfrey and Sanchez out of the pitching rotation and bring up these new guys like Norris, Zimmerman comes back, and guys can have success, then maybe, just maybe, something will spark them with a move. It is bleak, yes. The odds of them having a successful 2016 season are less than 50%, but it's not as dire as I think some people think it is. I think some people are starting to say, okay, I'm done. After that series versus Toronto, after all the terrible play, and after what Brad Ausmus, the mistakes that he made, I do think some people's confidence is low. But I'm going to say that I'm going to watch. I'm still going to believe in this team, and I do believe that the Tigers, with a couple moves, I'm most nervous about the rumors going around that Al Avila is going to stand pat. That would be devastating. That would turn me off if at the trade deadline no significant moves are made. So I'm going to say that I still have 40% confidence in a season of that could be noteworthy. Maybe a one-game playoff that gets us at least into the postseason. 40%.
John, what have I been saying for the past couple months about the Tigers?
Status quo, 500.
They're a 500 team. They're going to be a roller coaster. They're going to win a bunch. They're going to lose a bunch. And they're going to be 500. And right now, they are 3 games above 500. And I'm not even going to disagree with you. I think there's still hope for this team. You know, right now, they're only 4 games back from the wild card. Now, I'm not going to say that they're going to make the playoffs because you never know. An injury here, maybe Zimmerman's injury lasts a little bit longer, or maybe when he comes back, he doesn't come back fully healthy. Maybe Michael Fulmer drops off. I think a whole number of things can happen. But what I can tell you, and trust me, Detroit sports podcast fans, this team is going to be 500! They're not a dumpster fire, but they're not the best team in the world. They're going to be 500. If you can live with that, just get through the rest of the season. You're not going to fire Brad Ausmus. Yeah. What? That time is past, right?
He's with us.
We're not firing Brad Ausmus now, right?
Exactly.
It would just be so pointless unless they're going to do the same thing kind of when they let Dombrowski go before the end of the season, so we get a trial period for Vizquel. But this team's 500. They may make the playoffs. I put it at 10% right now, though.
And then you hear stuff like what's going down in the minors. Jacoby Jones and Anthony Ghost were kind of being malcontents over the weekend. They weren't being good.
Ew, that's not good. Jacoby Jones already has a history, and we're hoping that he can become something.
I think what happened there was he didn't run out of play, so he got put on the bench. Anthony Ghost was blatantly disrespectful to Lloyd McClendon. He no-showed on Sunday, and so it's not looking great there. But what you can hang your hat on with the Tigers is you might be on the verge of looking at a budding superstar. The AL, probably the rookie of the year in the AL, Michael Fulmer. He's doing great things. He's must watch. And so I guess, Jason, I'm curious to get your thoughts on, would you trade, potentially? I know the name that is kind of being bandied about is the left-hander from Oakland, Rich Hill. Dude's over 35 years old, left-handed pitcher. I would never give up Boyd and Norris for him. You don't do that kind of thing. What you got to do is you got to get an impact arm, someone in the bullpen, just 2 pieces. And if you have to trade maybe a Jimenez to get somebody, would you do that? Probably not, but you're going to have to give up a piece. And if you look at it seriously, there's really only 2 pieces that are going to give you a haul that might be doable and realistic. Trading K-Rod or trading Ian Kinsler. Now, Adam has just crucified me for saying it, but it's realistic. Dude's having a great season on a contender. That guy could take you over the top if he plays well, and he could bring you a load. Look what David Price got you.
Yeah, so, I mean, you should be on the phone with the Cubs right now, trying to deal K-Rod. But yeah,
that's what you think they should do. Do you think they should make the moves and look for next year and just say, you know what? It's not selling. It's improving the squad. by trading off some pieces that will bring you even 3 to 4 good players, even next year and the year after, that can compete and do some things.
I would be completely behind that. I think Kinsler and K-Rod, they're both going to be taking time bombs. Both of those guys are older. Kinsler, I honestly don't get how he's been doing what he's doing. He really looked washed up in Texas, and even through the first couple seasons here, he's been okay. This season has been its standout. You need to if you are going to trade him, you need to maximize him right now. Get as much as you can. And I think the same for K-Rod. He's one of the top closers right now. If you can get a haul from these guys, because right now I honestly think we're barren in our farm teams. So we need to try and maximize as much as we can. I'd rather have, players come in 2 or 3 years than have Kinsler go out in that second year and then just fall off the face of the earth.
So I don't think they're going to do it, though. I don't think they're going to make those moves because really, in the end,
because they're a 500 team, and
it would signify the end. It would signify, it would signify, and then I think you might lose a whole bunch of fans. But I think the smart baseball fans realize, you get maybe 2 or 3 starters if you trade both of them, and you get some guys that are going to be quality. But I do think they're going to rest their laurels on the fact they're going to get J.D. Martinez back. They're getting Zimmerman back. Maybe Norris will come back and contribute. Maybe Boyd will figure out how to hold the lead and when he has success. But the biggest thing with the Tigers right now is bad perception. And when you look at it, I just think that a lot of the fans think that, either they're going to make a big move, or the other side of the coin, fans think that, this isn't a World Series team. This is just a team that, you peek in from time to time against some squads that you root for. But all in all, I think the risk of investing in this team is going to result in a lot more pain than it is to kind of just step away and not pay attention to this team.
If you really think this team's a winner, yeah, it's going to involve you pain. But if you're like me and you know that they're going to be a 500 team, it's no pain because you know that they're going to win a game here. You know that they're going to lose a game here. But if they do have any hope of making a push to maybe get that wild card spot, I think these first couple series after the All-Star break are going to be it's going to be crucial. You have 3 games against the Royals. You have 3 games against the Twins. You have 4 against the White Sox. So that right there, you got 10 games in your own division. And all those teams, you're better than them right now. If you can somehow go, I don't know. For me, I think you'd have to go 7-3 to really get people on board.
7-3? Dude, Sanchez.
And I think that it's asking a lot.
They refuse to say Sanchez is done. They're still saying, well, I don't get it. We might have to.
Sanchez is garbage.
Pelfrey is the same status. And you got Lowe, who's
I'd rather have Pelfrey out there right now than Sanchez.
He might be turning it around.
Pelfrey's been pitching better. It's everyone behind him who has been messing it up.
So your thoughts are it's a 500 team. It's been a 500 team. Status quo. Can't be disappointed because we know what they are already. We're all thinking, well, Al Avila's got the biggest task to really kind of move this forward and do what he can to bring back the fans and bring back the excitement. I think that's what it is that people aren't excited anymore. It's that, you'd rather be excited playing on your phone than it is to watch the Tigers because it's disappointing.
You are going to get some Pokemon Go people at Comerica Park, though. I'm sure there's lots of Pokestops there.
There's a lot of Pokestops at Comerica? Oh, my gosh. I can't believe we're talking about this. A Pokemon cell phone game is probably a little bit more on the radar than the Detroit Tigers. Are you serious right now? Seriously?
Dude, it's national buzz. The Tigers don't have any national buzz.
You're right.
Is there anybody that you can...
One name.
Michael Fulmer.
That's it. And he's doing some things that we are kind of unheard of with his, only giving up 0-1 run. He's on track to be the AL Rookie of the Year. He's, really, I think the buzz around him is starting to grow. And a lot of people were talking about him before. And the second half of the year, we might need him. And we just hope that this whole pitch count thing or inning count thing doesn't derail us because he's on pace to do some things.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. But listen to me, people. They're going to be 500.
Yeah, they'll be 500.
If you accept that in your heart, hope for the worst and expect the best. If they make the wild card, it'll be that much sweeter.
And Brad Ausmus, please, over the break, just read a managerial book. If you got a situation where you can use your closer for 4 outs, just do it. You only did it once before. You can't come out there and say that's not your preference. My preference is that the Tigers win. My preference is that Anibal Sanchez, doesn't throw meatballs to the potential AL MVP in Josh Donaldson. That did you see that home run that Donaldson hit?
It was big.
It was a 92-mile-an-hour fastball right down basically the heart of the plate, and Josh Donaldson crushed it. Did you see the view from the batter's perspective?
I didn't.
Oh my gosh, they showed it I think on Fox Sports Detroit where he was from the batter's side. Oh my gosh, he took a golf swing. Literally, it was beautiful. He took a golf swing, hit the hell out of the baseball. It was a high towering ball, and we were still in that game. We were only down 2-0. Couple of mistakes by Sanchez, then the home run ball. You're down 5-0. The game's over. So this is a fine line, and the Tigers aren't doing what it takes to win, and it's just it's a little bit frustrating. But hey, have a little bit of hope. Maybe make a move that can rejuvenate everybody. What are you going to do? Let's get out of here.
We'll see where they are when they come back from the All-Star break. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Motor City Sports Rant. As always, I am Jason Jarvi. Follow me on Twitter at Jarvi the King. He is John Macaroon. Follow the podcast at Detroit Podcast. Till next week, peace out. I hate you.
Okay, nice, idiot. You. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.